What's up everybody, Harvey here, the remote property investor. So you have 15k and you want to start in property. But the challenge you have is you live in Kent, a part of the world where 15k, quite frankly, is not really going to scratch the surface. You're going to need probably more like 100k. So how do you get into property with only 15k if you live in Kent in the southeast of England or London or anywhere in the southeast where the purchase prices are way, well, the deposit amounts you're going to need are way above 15k. So watch on this video. I'm going to share with you 10 ways to get into property with only 15k, even if you live in a part of the country like Kent or London. But before we get started, one way that's probably going to drive you forward, and well, maybe drive you forward, is if you smash that like button. Just, well, say you don't even have to smash it. If you just stroke that like button, don't worry about smashing your screens or anything like that. That for sure is going to get you moving forward into property, even if you've only got 15k. But all jokes aside, let's get into it. Let's look at the 10 ways you can get into property with only 15k, even if you live in the south, in Kent, London, or anywhere where the property prices way exceed that sort of amount of startup investment. So you've got 15k, you want to get into property, but you don't know how to start. And what makes it even more challenging is you live in Kent. So this is a great question. How do you get started in property, or can you get started with 15k in property? So the answer is absolutely yes, you can get started in property with 15k. So I'm going to give you 10 ways to get into property with only 15k, even if you live in Kent, even if you live in London. So, but before we get started with the 10 ways, I've touched on this so many times, but repetition is the mother of all learning. So even though I've touched on this before, I'm going to go over this again, this little principle behind getting forward in property, because there's loads of strategies out there that you can move on with and you can do, but you've got to make sure you do the right strategy that suits you where you are in your journey. So the strategies in principle, one thing, the reality of delivering them strategies is a very, very different thing. So I'm going to run through this quickly. I'm only going to do this quickly because you can check some previous videos that I've done on this as well, which will go in this is in more depth. So check out some of my old videos on this, which goes into more depth, but I'll quickly run over this now, just the principle of it. So there's loads of strategies out there, but getting the right strategy that suits you, there's 4 fundamentals behind knowing what the right strategy is for you. And these 4 fundamentals is knowledge, network, money, and what sits in the middle of all those is time. So you're not going to move forward, like you're not going to move forward if you've not got the time to implement any of these. So you've got to think to yourself, how much knowledge have I got, how much network I've got, how much money I've got, and how much time have I got to deliver this? Very rarely, if ever, has anybody got all 4. If somebody's got knowledge, network, and a bit of time, they've very rarely got, well, they've very rarely, and money, sorry, they've very rarely got time. Anyone growing a business, time will definitely be against them. The only people who's usually got knowledge, network, and money would be somebody that's probably retired and got loads of time in their hand, but they don't want to grow. But if you're in a growth stage, time's usually short or money's usually short because you're putting it into all your projects. So what you want to ask yourself is, where am I at with all of these? So with time, see, wherever it is in the starting point is where you will give you a dependable on where you should be going with this. So if your time is down here and your money's down here, but maybe your knowledge is okay-ish, you've got a decent network of builders, solicitors and everything, that then will be a very different strategy for somebody that all of this, so say this was 0 and this was 10, so score yourself. The power of your questions is the power of your results. So this would be very, very different from somebody who was all down here, all 0s, or somebody who definitely 10s. As I said, nobody's gonna get all 4 of those in a 10, but depending where they are, depends on the strategy. And there's different strategies in there. So this pyramid really shows it well, because depending on your knowledge and your network, you don't want to be, this is like this stuff in the middle here stands for buy-to-lets. This is vanilla buy-to-lets, your standard buy-to-let properties, your BRR sort of stuff. This is SAs and HMOs, commercial conversions, developments. So when you're starting out, if you've not got much knowledge, you've not got much money, even if you've got quite a bit of money, you've got not much knowledge and network, you probably want to start and build a foundation down the bottom here and then skill up a little bit as you get a bit of knowledge. So start off doing a buy to let, which is like a 5, maybe 10K refurb. Get used to costing a refurb, get used to managing builders, finding builders when the stakes are lower, and then step up to the HMOs, which are a bigger like cost on the development side of it, and SAs, which is much more management intensive. Once you've got used to managing tenants, finding a managing agent and doing it when the stakes are lower, then you step up to commercial conversions once you've got a few HMOs, and up to developments. As I said, done a video on this in the past, not going too much in depth, but you've really got to think about this again. So I'm going to reiterate that. So, but another thing, what you've got to think about that's not around here is your courage, your level and ability to take on stress. If you've never done a deal before and you take on a commercial conversion, which is going to have lots of planning, loads of things with legals and compliance and lots of stuff, it's going to really overwhelm you. So if your ability to take on stress and your courage is low, so if you've not got a lot of courage and your ability to take on stress is low, then you definitely got to start smaller to build your courage up, so you get a bit of confidence in the smaller stuff and step up and step up. It's like Anthony Joshua, the boxer, when he come out from the Olympics, although they knew he was probably a heavyweight contending title person, he didn't start off, nobody starts off a heavyweight title fight straight coming into a pro. So he went from amateur pro, and he went from journeyman, and he skilled up. It's like a computer game as well. You start level 1, you skill up, and when you get to level 10, you're better. If you start level 10, you probably put you off. So if you make mistakes up here, it might put you off forever and think property's not for me. So you want to skill up along the way. So depending where your courage is, but if your courage is all out there, you've got loads of courage, you've not got much money, but you have to go out and raise money, but you've got a lot of courage, you might start a little bit higher. So this is a general rule, but it's not, there is always exceptions. You might be a builder or a surveyor and you can step up a little bit higher up here, but in general, start on the bottom one, get a good foundation. This will give you some credibility with the banks as well. And then once you've got that, step up to these ones, it's going to give you higher cash flows, do a few of those, give you more credibility, step up to commercial conversions, then up to developments. If you want to step up like that, you might stop here, or you might stop here, or you might stop here, you know, so it's all individual. But when you ask these questions and go on this scale, draw this on a piece of paper, do this scale, and you'll figure out where you are in your journey to, you'll figure out where you kind of are in your journey, and then off the answers of these, you can start figuring out where you are here. So now we have covered that little part. What we're going to do is we're going to look at 10 different ways you can use, 10 different ways you can get into property with 15K. So method number 1 is sourcing. I'm a little bit dyslexic, so give you a little bit of a disclaimer there if there's any spelling mistakes. This is just for purpose of learning, not for my grammar. But sourcing, method number, like deal packaging, sourcing. Method number 2 is joint ventures. Method number 3, RBRR, which is remote property investing, which I do. So buying an area where the properties are cheaper. Method number 4 is options, lease options. So purchase lease options. That's right up there. Get the P in. So purchase lease options. Method number 5 is rent to rent. Method number 6 is vendor finance. And method number 7 is exchange delayed completion. Method number 8 is private finance. Method number 9 is crowdfunding. Definitely spelled that wrong. And method number 10, the blockchain and crypto. So right, we've got the 10 here. Now we're going to go through how you can implement all 10 of those. So starting with deal sourcing and packaging. So deal sourcing and packaging is where you take about £1,000 to get compliant. You go out and source some deals, and what you do is you'll sell that deal to somebody and they'll pay you a fee. I source deals for investors. Well, we portfolio build, but we charge 5.5k per deal. You can charge anything from just packaging it from 3.5k all the way up to 10, 15, 20k, depending on the level of deals. So you find the deals, you get really good at finding deals, and you package them on, sell them at a fee. You've only got to sell a handful of those to put towards your 15k, and then you've got enough money for a deposit. Number 2 is JVs, joint ventures. So find yourself a joint venture. Find somebody else that's got some money to put into your pot. So you might have 15k, you might have a family member that's got 15, 20, 30k that can put the money into there, and you arrange some sort of agreement that you do it together. So some joint ventures, they might put all the money in, you do the work, or they put a percentage in. But one thing you want to make sure when you're doing joint ventures is get a really good agreement. It doesn't have to be a legal binding one. It does help, but it doesn't have to be a legal binding one. But make sure you've written down everything that you want to achieve. So write down your goals and what you want to achieve from it. Write down whose roles to do whatever. Like, so if somebody's just putting the money in, you're doing the work, or you're meant to do an amount of work each. Write down your roles and your expectations. Write down the worst case scenarios. So the what ifs. What if it didn't rent out? What if it got down valued? What if the refurb coming more money? Put it all what it's down, and then what you would do if that happens, because you want to deal with that when the emotion, like getting into a joint venture relationship is like getting into a normal partnership relationship in life, like boyfriend girlfriend sort of style relationship. At the start, how many of you have got with a girlfriend or a boyfriend and thought, wow, this is marriage material, and then 6 months later go, what did I see in them? It's the same with JVs. When you're all excited about the upside of what could potentially happen, and then you hit some challenge along the way, which you always do in property, by the way, then it changes. And when emotions are in place, it's hard. But if you've got it written down at the start, it really, really helps. Number 3 is remote buy refurbish remortgage. So remote investing, if you live in Kent, there is areas you can still buy properties for 50k. You know, the lower purchase price and less, but you're only going to get, it's going to be in your personal name, but you can get a mortgage at 50k. So 15k would be enough to get the mortgage. And then what you could do, I don't advise everybody around this, but get a credit card. If you've got 15k, you must be credit worthy. So get a credit card. So what you do is you pay the solicitor on your credit card, you pay your searches on your credit card, you pay for all your materials on your credit card, and get one that's got a facility to put some money in your account, and pay for your refurb on your credit card, and you've got your 15k for your deposit. So look at remote location. If you're interested in remote property investor, watch some of my previous videos around remote property investing. More than doable today with today's tech, and it's getting easier and easier as the tech's getting better, as we get more into this metaverse and this virtual world. It's going to become easier and easier. So it's definitely something you can do, and it's something I've done for best part of a decade now, about 8 years, 9 years probably. Next one is PLO, purchase lease option. So this is when you get the option to buy a property, but you've got the option to buy it, but not the obligation to buy it. You get it done with a solicitor and get it arranged with a solicitor, and basically you have to give a consideration. So it might be £1, it could be £1,000, you could give them 10 grand, and you take over that property, and then you say, well, I'm going to complete on this in 10 years time, 5 years time, 3 years time, 1 year's time, whatever you agree with them, and you have to pay them a monthly consideration towards it. So it's leasing the property for an amount of time with the option to buy it at the end. You've got the right to buy it, but not the obligation. They can't pull out, but you can. You shouldn't go into them planning to pull out. You do want to be able to complete on these, but make sure you've got the contingency to be able to complete on these. So I won't go too in depth on these because I've done separate videos on all these. Check out my YouTube, the rest of the stuff on my YouTube for the separate videos. Most of this stuff, there's a separate one on each of these. Number 5 is rent to rent. So rent to rent is where you'll rent a property from a landlord, and then you'll rent it out maybe as service accommodation or as a HMO. So you'll take a normal property that's generating, maybe, say you're using Kent, a property that might generate £1,200 a month. If it turned it into an SA, it might generate £3,000-4,000 a month. Obviously, after your running costs, electric and everything, there could be still a tidy margin after giving them that rent. Or similar again, if you rented a 4-bedroom property which had 2 reception rooms, you could potentially turn it into a 5-bedroom HMO and rent it by the room and force that price up. One thing with rent to rent, you will be a property manager. You're not a property owner, and you're not going to benefit from the ownership of that and the wealth generation that you get from owning property long term. And it's not wealth building, it is income building. But if you need an income, it's a good stepping stone towards generating your income up, then being able to jump onto some other strategies afterwards. Number 6 is vendor finance. So vendor finance is when the vendor finances you. So how does this work? So if a vendor had bought a property maybe 20 years ago, 30 years ago, he bought it for 20k, he only owes around 20k left on it, but it's gone up exponentially, especially if you're using part of the world like Kent. It's gone up exponentially, and it's now worth 200k. They might say to you, they might be a tired landlord, fed up with all the legislation coming in, and you might say to them, look, okay, I'll give you 15k deposit, but then you finance me the rest of it. So they only owe 15k on it, so we'll get this drawn up by a solicitor, and they'll give you the finance on it, and you will pay them a monthly consideration. So they get rid of all the management hassle. They get a lump sum of money from you, and also what they get is still a monthly income. So they're not losing their monthly income and a lump sum of money from you. But what you could also do is, if you can raise the full deposit, you probably wouldn't be able to do this in Kent with 15k, but you would be able to do this in a remote area. If you can pay them the deposit, some vendor finance structures are, once they complete it, they give you the deposit back, and you pay them the deposit money over a period of time, on a set period of time, and give them interest on that. So they're getting an income. They're pretty much probably getting a similar amount from the properties they would as a buy-to-let, without the hassle from a buy-to-let, and still get a nice lump sum of money. So it can be appealing for some. Not many people will be out there, but there is, like, you want to think creatively around these when you're speaking to people. The next one is the exchange with delayed completion. So a bit similar to a lease option, but you are exchanging contracts on this. So you'll go through all the process, you'll exchange contracts, and you use your 15k to do the work to the property, force the value up, and then you'd have to bridge it, because you only can lend from a mortgage lender at the purchase price. You'd have to find the right style bridges. Usually they want a minimum 3-month period, so you might have to pay 3 months, even though you're going to bridge in and bridge out. But you bridge it with the work done. And lot of bridges will lend you on the value, not just not just what you're purchasing it for. So if you've done the work and you can prove it's worth, say if you bought property for 70k and you spent 15k on it, and you can prove it's worth 100k, they're going to give you a 75 up to 85% mortgage, bridging loan on that. So you might not have to put money. You won't have to put money in for the bridge. So you can bridge it, then put it onto a normal mortgage product at the new value, allowing you to be a little bit creative around that. The numbers might have to slightly change on that. I only thought that through off the top of my head, but you see the principle behind that. Number 8 is private finance, private loans. I've just had a 90k loan and a 50k loan. People have loaned me this money to get on my projects. To be fair, if you go back to that original knowledge network thing, if you've got low knowledge and low networks, it's going to be harder to raise finance. But if you've got family members and you can prove yourself a little bit credible, the best way to do this is go out and learn as much as you can about property and document it online. So don't go online and pretend you're a guru and you know all this and giving people tips. Go online and tell people what you're learning, and put it on your personal profiles, your LinkedIn, your personal Facebook page, your personal Instagram, and say, wow, I just learned this, just done this course and I learned that. I've just been on this webinar, I've learned this. I've just been on this YouTube, I've learned this. And I've been doing these viewings and I've been doing that. And if you document your journey, the likelihood of a family member potentially thinking, right, you're credible, I've seen your being plugging away at this, learning for 3 months, 4 months, I'm happy to lend you the money, you know. So you can get private finance. It is harder when you've not got much experience, but it's not impossible. But again, if you've not got much experience, only lend a smaller amount, cut your teeth, do the thing on that pyramid I was talking about, doing the smaller stuff, because you will. I'm just doing a bit of a bigger project than I usually do. It's an 80k refurb. My typical projects are usually around sort of like 15k. I have done one that was just shy of 50k, but this is the biggest one I've done, and there's a few little learnings I've done along the way, but because I've got a foundation of single let properties and I've got a bit of experience, I've navigated them little challenges. It's cost me a little bit more than anticipated, but I can navigate that because of my experience. But if you was fresh out and you've only got 15k, that could wipe you out. So always think about that when you're raising finance, that you're raising it and putting it into a project that is suitable for your skill level where you are. Number 9 is crowdfunding. You could raise crowdfunding finance, but you also could put your money into crowdfunding projects. So you could invest in their project. You could put 10k in it, 50k into it. You could put £100 into a lot of these, I believe. So you can put, like, I can go as an investor to a crowdfunding platform and lend money for my next project. The crowdfunding is anybody can put that money into that project and it will just raise it. So you can get into property by either putting it into it and actually getting directly into it and getting a fixed return on your capital, or you could actually go and try and raise a bit of crowdfunding finance yourself. You will need some sort of level deposit to get into that, and again, that will be remote stuff. Most crowdfunders lending to you saying that will probably not lend at that lower end, but you could put your money into that. And number 10, finally, is the blockchain. So you might be thinking, how do I get into, what does crypto has got to do with property investing? How can I get into that? There is some blockchains coming out. There's one called MyBricks, and you can then get into property for as little as £10. So the blockchain is going to own these, very similar to a crowdfunding site, but it's going to be done through cryptology and the blockchain and smart contracts. So you could get into there with a smaller amount, get a return on your capital without actually going to buy the physical property yourself. So I hope you found that useful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, a share, a like, smash that subscribe button. And remember, my why is to live on my own terms, and my mission is to help as many people live on their own terms. So please help the algorithms by doing that. Please hit that like button. Please hit the subscribe. Please hit the bell icon. Please comment as well, because it really helps the algorithms out, really helps push us out, and really helps push the message out for me. But remember, if you don't evolve your ideas, you never live on your own terms. So evolve your ideas, live on your own terms.